Hello, I'm Megan O'Rourke, and I'm here with Town Meeting Television Under the Dome, where we are talking to local legislators about what's going on in Montpelier. I'm here today, I'm joined by Representative Martin Lalonde. Welcome. Chittenden 13? 12. Chittenden 12, generally South Burlington.
Correct.
Is that correct? Yeah.
One of 5 South Burlington reps.
Yeah. So welcome.
Yeah,
Thanks for
it's
joining
good to be
us.
here.
This
Thank
is a
you.
chance for you to tell us a little bit about your perspective, what's going on in Montpelier. Tell us how it is. How's this session going so far?
Sure. So most of my work is, well, 150% of my time is with the Judiciary Committee. I chair the House Judiciary Committee. And 2 overarching topics, and happy to dig into it a little bit further, is our work on public safety, which is a continuance really from last biennium. We really focused on that, and actually this committee focuses on that a lot. And then also just things we've been doing in reaction to what's going on outside the state's borders, nationally. The federal government as well as other states are really, has taken up probably most of our time this session so far.
So the session started in January, we're May, we're generally you'd be expecting to wrap up in early June. What has made it through the session so far that is of note?
Yeah, hopefully not early June, first of all. Hopefully we'll get out before Memorial Day, or at least by the end of May. That is certainly my hope. So we've had quite a few bills that we've moved out of Judiciary Committee and that we've received from the Senate Judiciary Committee that we continue to work on. So with respect to public safety, we started the session really focusing on juvenile justice and what we could do with respect to juvenile justice. We also really focused on an omnibus bill that from the administration related to public safety and the various different kinds of provisions in that bill. We didn't actually get that bill until just before crossover, but we understood from conversations with the administration what was going to be in the bill. And that steered some of our work as well. So on juvenile justice, one of the issues has to do with what's called the Raise the Age initiative. And this started back in 2018. I believe the bill passed in 2017 or 18. The idea is that youth brain development does not really fully mature until the mid-20s, and a lot of youth will, do stupid things that are criminal offenses, and we'd rather not have those youth go through the criminal justice system where they will have a criminal record and can negatively affect the rest of their lives, and also isn't the right path. Before this law passed, under 18-year-olds, 17 and below, would go to family court where there's confidentiality, where there's no criminal record, where it's really focused. It's focused on accountability, but also rehabilitation more so than the criminal justice system is able to do. And the Raise the Age initiative moved that age up to 18 back in 2020, and it was supposed to move up to 19-year-olds and below to go to family or juvenile court, and that kept on getting delayed. And so we looked at that issue, we looked at accountability issue, and we did end up further delay. Although the administration wanted us just to repeal and not move any further, we felt there's a path to do that. It's still the
By the
right thing
administration,
to
you mean
do.
the governor's office?
Yeah, the governor's office. And it's still the right thing to do. There's better success going through family court where there's not going to be a record, where there's more rehabilitation. But there are some things we have to work out in order to make it work. And that has to do with accountability for those individuals who may be 18 or 19-year-olds who really are resistant to changing their behavior and resistant to the rehabilitation. We do have to figure out how to hold them more accountable and make it a successful system. And we have 2 years to now do that. And we are planning on taking more testimony and doing more work over the next couple of years.
And who have you heard from on that? I mean, who's been in favor of this? Who have you heard from that's been against this?
There are many entities and stakeholders who are in favor of this, of the concept, though having it was supposed to go into effect April 1st, and we passed this law to put that off, and some other things. We also raised the age from 10 to 12 individuals who could be in family court at all. Under 12, if somebody commits an offense, there's other avenues through DCF oversight and such, but they don't have to go into court process. In any event, so the defender, what really sealed it for me on having a delay, I didn't want to repeal it, was the Defender General's office saying that they're very supportive of the concept, but DCF is not ready. Individuals at the Department of Children and Families also are in favor of the concept, but they need more time
And
to be
specifically,
prepared.
these offenses would be for what kinds?
Well, they're lower.
Criminal
They're not.
offenses, but
Yeah, they're not the worst offenses like murder and arson and aggravated sexual assault, etc. But felonies are included, but not what we call the Big 14, which are really the worst offenses. So. But we're hoping to get there, and that was just one aspect. On other things that we've worked on for public safety is more on the side of the budget. We did a lot last biennium, last session, and we really needed to put the funds behind some of the initiatives that we started. So for instance, the biggest one, well, backing up a little bit, we've really looked at how to make the public more safe, and it's not about having longer sentences or anything like that. It's really, there's two main ways that we can deter crime. One is having a higher risk of being caught. That means there has to be law enforcement presence. That's not so much my committee, but that's something we've certainly, the legislature's looked at. The second is that there are certain and swift consequences. And what that means is that the court has to be moving cases more expeditiously than they have been. And there's a backlog which has made it not swift and not certain. And so individuals can be waiting for months for their misdemeanors to be resolved. And in the interim, may be getting into further problem, may not be getting supported. And the distance to the consequences from their behavior, it doesn't have the deterrent effect. So that's been a focus, is to get the courts to move more quickly. Last session, we put extra funds into the system for prosecutors, for defense counsel, for victim advocates, for the courts, 3 additional judges, 2 who are now in Burlington. So we did a lot to bolster that system. But there's another really important aspect of that, and that is to have fewer cases going into the criminal justice system. And that's where we expanded what's called pre-charge diversion. We want more cases before they're ever charged, before they ever go to the state's attorneys, before they ever enter the criminal justice system, to go to community justice centers for restorative processes. You know, not all cases, lower level cases, but over the last 3 years, I mean, there are a number of South Burlington, Essex, Winooski, Williston, they all already have this pre-charge diversion, but we're trying to expand it statewide and support what's going on in Chittenden County as well. So the past 3 years, averaging almost 700 cases a year are going through that route, and we want to expand that. We want to keep that, what we've achieved, and expand it. So we had a very important bill, Act 180, last year, that really systematizes that pre-charge program. And right now our big push is to make sure we have funding. And so far, I understand that in the budget that actually came over from the Senate has even a little bit more funding for that initiative than we had in the House, but we had supported that in the House. And there's also a funding for state's attorneys as well, defenders and such. So that budget has been an important aspect, and I'm watching that very carefully as far as from the public safety criminal justice side as well.
Yeah, so walk us through that. Is judiciary a policy committee
Yes.
or a budget committee?
Yeah, we're a policy committee, but we do weigh in on the budget, the requests. We provide a memo that sets forth our priorities, and we took a lot of testimony on what the needs were. So we work kind of hand in hand with the Appropriations Committee on that small slice of the budget. And our priorities were for the pre-charge program. Also what's called transport deputies. That's the individuals who will bring somebody from the prison up into court and
In the sheriff's department?
yeah,
or-
through through the Department of State's attorneys and sheriffs. And that was a second priority because we understand that cases are more expeditiously resolved if the individual is in the court, and we want to make sure that that's happening. And then also for victims advocates and for the Network Against Domestic and Sexual Violence was a third priority. And we have been getting some funding for that, not nearly enough because we're a little concerned, particularly about the network, because a lot of their funding is federal grants. And so we're trying to make sure we have a backup plan to help if those grants go away. So that's been a focus as well on the public safety side.
So on that, in that public safety realm, besides the network, who else is affected by potential federal funding cuts? What are you hearing from the?
Yeah. So the biggest is the victim advocates and the Network Against Sexual and
Explain to
Domestic
somebody
Violence.
who doesn't understand what the network is.
Yeah, so the network is kind of an umbrella organization for local organizations that help victims of domestic violence. They help them in court as far as getting relief from abuse orders. They help them as far as if they need housing and they're trying to get out of an abusive situation. And they deal with the sexual violence as well, supporting victims of sexual violence. In Chittenden County, it's Steps to End Domestic and Sexual Violence is the organization that's under that umbrella of the network.
And so they might have an attorney who shows up at a court hearing, or they might help train police officers around sexual violence screening.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
And their funding, that the network's funding is in jeopardy, and the state provides some funding, and you're looking at potentially having to back that up.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just one of, I think, many areas that the Appropriations Committee is looking at. Where do we have to back this up? How do we do that? It's still kind of a wait and see what happens at the federal level. And that kind of probably gets a little beyond my knowledge of exactly how they're figuring that out in the Appropriations Committee.
Who else does the Judiciary Committee work with closely? I mean, you have Institutions and Corrections that's looking at facilities.
Yes. Yeah.
Who else? I mean, do the committees work together?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. The Government Operations does a lot of the law enforcement, but we have overlapping jurisdiction on law enforcement. Human Services Committee does a lot of work with the Department of Children and Families. We have overlap with them.
And then our corrections facilities are within Human Services in Vermont.
Correct,
Is that
right,
correct? Yeah,
yes.
but they are.
But there's still, the Corrections and Institutions Committee is the primary for that.
Yeah.
So we do try to not have silos and really keep on top of what we're doing, and I think have done a pretty good job of that. The Raise the Age Bill H2, we had input from Corrections and from the Human Services Committee. So.
Yeah. And who are the kinds of folks that you're hearing testimony from? I mean, it seems like that's a big part of your legislation. I mean, is that a big part of the Judiciary Committee, is hearing testimony from folks in order to affect your lawmaking decision?
Yeah, I mean, so we have, I can call them the normal cast of characters, or the folks that come in quite often. I mean, we hear from the judiciary, the chief superior judge, and the head of the administration of the courts. We hear from the Department of State's attorneys and sheriffs, their executive director, as well as individual state's attorneys. We hear from the Defender General and other individuals from the Defender General's office. We hear from ACLU. We hear from the victims. The Vermont, I'm going to not get the acronym right, so I won't try, but the Victim Services, the network, and we reach out to the Office of Racial Equity, often testifies as well. And there's a lot of individuals who just reach out who are Vermont citizens or residents who have an interest in the issue, and we'll take either written testimony or we'll have some individuals in. We'll hear from the bar as well. So it's really, it's a criminal justice system, and It's also just access to justice and access to the court. Legal aid, who's just down the street here, we hear from them quite often as well. So, but there's one other issue I was hoping to get to. I don't know how much time we have, but so it is the issue of what's going on at the national level, and what are we doing about that? What have we been doing about that? So I had a meeting with one of the main policy individuals from the ACLU, actually the day before the November election, and just kind of planning if things didn't turn out how we wanted to, and they did not. And the message at that point, and I think continues, although we continue to look at what else we can do, is that Vermont already did a lot of things to protect our public policies and in our interests. With respect to immigrants, we passed the fair and impartial policing policy. Actually, years ago, that was passed for just how law enforcement deals with individuals, black and brown individuals, and other vulnerable populations as well. But it then started expanding in the first Trump administration as far as how we're going to deal with immigration. So law enforcement, this model policy requires that law enforcement doesn't, when they're stopping somebody, ask what their immigration status is. I mean, we're really focusing on public safety within our state, not immigration issues, which are not our issue, not the state's issues. That's the federal issue, and this really tries to delineate that law enforcement is for state public safety, not for immigration.
And my understanding is that an immigration offense is not a criminal offense. It's not.
There's a civil offense. There can be. There are criminal offenses that related to immigration. I'm not an expert in that area, but we don't.
But to be here in an undocumented way is not a criminal offense.
That is my understanding. That is my understanding. But so we had the fair and impartial policing policy already. Our SHIELD bill that we passed last biennium, very important for protecting individuals who are providers and who are patients for gender affirming or reproductive health care. We did pass a bill S-28. I think it's back in the Senate now. It was in the Senate, came to the House. We added some things to that bill. It was mostly in healthcare, actually, though that's another situation where judiciary weighed in on that bill as well to expand the protections that our SHIELD bill provides, including non-cooperation with investigations. The SHIELD bill originally, as passed last biennium, really focused on other states that are restricting reproductive and gender affirming care. This bill will expand it to federal investigations. But if there's a federal law that if there's a warrant, we do have to comply with the federal warrant. But if it's just an investigation where it's where we don't have to cooperate, the idea is that we're not going to provide information about providers or recipients of those kinds of care. So that's a bill that is back in the Senate. I anticipate that it's going to probably get all the way through shouldn't be a problem. On the immigration side, there's S-44 is a law that we just passed out last week as it came over from the Senate, and it's going to be on the House floor this week. So there are agreements that can be signed between ICE and local law enforcement to essentially deputize local law enforcement to enforce federal immigration law. We don't have any of those kind of agreements now. And we passed a law, and I don't remember when we passed the original law, probably a few years ago, that provides that the governor has to approve such agreements. It can't be approved locally.
On a case-by-case basis.
Yes, right. So oftentimes it could be with the sheriff's office or something like that. And this law said, no, you have to get the governor's permission for that. The governor in consultation with the attorney general. So there was an exception to that, and that's if there's a state of emergency, local agencies could enter those agreements, and we're just getting rid of that exception because I think we're seeing in this administration that it's too easy to say there's emergencies. So that's another thing that we've worked on. This past week, we did have a hearing on the fair and impartial policing process and understanding how law enforcement is working in certain circumstances with Border Patrol, which actually the Border Patrol is fairly important for our northern counties as far as just providing police presence, and we want to keep that, but we don't want to do their work for them because we don't have enough law enforcement ourselves, and fundamentally we may not be agreeing with what's happening as far as immigration issues, deportations and the like.
Does any of this legislation or these bills put federal funding at risk? We've seen in the case of Maine, and where legislation that counters the Trump administration's agenda.
Right. So
puts a sort of target or a spotlight.
Perhaps. I mean, so one of the things that we try to make very we want to be sure about is that we're not in violation of federal laws when we're like the fair and impartial policing policy, the SHIELD law, et cetera. And we look very carefully at what the restrictions would be, and we feel that those laws are all legal federally. It doesn't violate any federal laws. But that, I think, with this administration doesn't mean anything necessarily. And there's pressure, for instance, to across the country to enter these deputizing agreements that I mentioned before. The Trump administration has been pushing for that. I don't know how much they're pushing Vermont at this point, but I could see that they are using their coercion to try to get us to help with that, or to try to change our policies. Maybe we're a smaller fish, and the governor is trying to balance, protecting Vermont, but also, we have these policies which I think are very important, and particularly the SHIELD bill, particularly our recognition of gender identity as a protected class under our anti-discrimination laws. And I think we should go to the mat on those, whether there's threats or not, and we should litigate those if we need to. So there's another bill that did go through our committee, which is kind of outside of what we've been talking about, and that's the Climate Superfund bill, which we are now being sued over the Climate Superfund.
And why was that in judiciary?
There's a lot of legal analysis that's done as far as are we in violation of the Clean Air Act? We don't think so. Are we in violation of the Commerce Clause of the Constitution? We didn't think so through our testimony that we received. So we made those kind of judgment calls. It'll be litigated, and we'll find out in the end. We thought we had good defenses on all those things, and that's why we voted that out of our committee, and it came out of Environment Committee as well. So.
And what's the impact of on Vermonters of that going one way or another?
As far as the lawsuit, as far as it, well, the idea under the law is that, like the Superfund Act, which companies made huge profits on polluting our waterways and lands, and they're held to account to clean up after their messes.
10,
this doesn't
20, 30 years.
Yeah. So I mean, there's some differences, but the general concept of a polluter pays is what's behind that. And we believe, and we think the science supports the fact that the carbon emissions from the major fossil fuel companies who have been making billions of dollars on that and have known about their impacts for decades, that they should be held accountable for cleaning up some of the mess that they've caused, like the flooding that we're seeing in Vermont. So that's the concept behind it. It's going to take us years to get to that point, not just because of the litigation, but because of rulemaking. It's going to take a little while before we ever get a return from that, but it's well worth it. I think it actually makes a lot of sense. We feel confident about the legal arguments, so it's worth the effort, I think.
Is there any support for that from Vermont-based corporations in opposition to? Have you seen sort of unlikely?
I haven't. I don't think. I'm sure that there
alliances?
I'm sure there are oil, gas, fossil fuel companies in Vermont that probably don't like this. But the bill would. I mean, the law, I should say at this point, wouldn't be going after those local. I mean, it's not those locals, because you have to have a certain level of impact, and any individual gas station or whatever in Vermont or company does not have the impact such that they would fall under this law.
Yeah. How has this session been different? What I've heard from other folks is things are taking longer, less legislation is being passed. People are working really hard to be collegial with their colleagues from across the political spectrum.
Right.
What's been your experience?
So yeah, I think that's true. I think we've passed quite a few bills, probably not as many as we did last biennium. We really passed a lot of law the last biennium, but we've passed out, I think, close to 10 bills, and some of them a little broader than others. Yes, so I don't think it's changed from my perspective of how I've approached it as the chair last biennium, that I always tried to get as many people on board with compromise as possible. Frankly, there seemed to be less willingness by the Republicans, because they were facing at least in my committee, they were facing a so-called supermajority, as they would say. I had 8 Democrats in my committee and 3 Republicans, and they felt probably outnumbered, but I always tried to still work with them and would get input from them and change the bill to accommodate concerns that Republicans had, or Democrats. Always tried to find more compromise. I feel that there's more willingness, frankly, by my Republican members to seek compromise and work with me this year, because they can make a difference. It's if we don't get bills out that we all like, the governor can veto them, and we won't be able to overturn the veto. So I think they feel that they have more voice at the table, perhaps, than last time, even though I really feel that I tried to reach out. So we've passed most of our bills with a unanimous vote. We've had one bill that had 2 no votes, and we had one bill that had 1 no vote, but otherwise, really are working to try to find that compromise. And there's a willingness on both sides to do that.
Help me understand, in judiciary, what are some of the funding sources to support some of the work that's coming out of the Judiciary Committee? So what's the revenue stream that supports some of that?
It's mostly the general fund. There are fees that are collected for technology in the courts, for instance, fees that are collected that help with the victims advocates and the network. But the fees are going down as far as, the amount of fees that are being collected has been going down. So.
Is there a reason for that, or is just?
I think so there are less. Well, it doesn't seem like that there are less cases going through the courts, but I think there are less tickets. There's less things going through our judicial bureau, which is kind of more the civil side, but there can be fees involved there. As far as fines that might be imposed, those have been going down. Just the thing is that it's tough to rely on fees when the majority of individuals who end up in the criminal justice system are not of financial means, generally speaking. So we have been seeing a decline in fees. But even so, that wasn't a huge part of the funding. Again, most of it is the general fund. And there are some pockets where there is some federal funds for law enforcement. But again, law enforcement, I don't deal with their budget as much. For states' attorneys and prosecutors and defender general, it's pretty minimal from what I understand. They're not the ones who are really concerned.
So you're saying you're hoping to get out by before Memorial Day.
Well, don't say Labor Day.
Before Memorial Day, and it's rumors are on the table whether you will or not.
Yeah. My guess is that it's going to be towards the end of May, but
okay. The big thing, of course, to pass is the budget. Right. And then there's hope that there's been enough working on this that the governor won't veto that budget at this point.
Right. I'm hopeful that is the case. I think there's more work that will be done in the conference committee and probably with some input, I would imagine, from the administration. But I think the critical path is not even so much the budget; it's the education bill that is
Which
just passed.
may be the thing that keeps, oddly enough, you may pass the
right.
budget and then
Right.
have to stick around to
Correct.
work on the
That's my
education
understanding.
bill.
That's the critical path. Unlike almost every biennium that I've been there, the critical path has always been the budget. Once the budget and tax bill are passed, we're out of there. That's not necessarily the case this year, and I'm also frankly concerned that if the education bill comes out where the administration is really opposed to it, they could hold the budget hostage until we do something there. There's those end of session politics that are still to play out.
Got it. Are there any bills left on the wall that you're hoping to pick up and run with, or that will be worked on as in a summer study?
Yeah, so we still have a couple bills that we are still looking to pass out. We're still getting some bills back from the Senate. Actually, one of them goes to the kind of broader topic I mentioned as far as what are we doing given what's going on beyond the state boundaries. There's a bill that we passed out of the House, H98, that addresses something called confirmatory adoptions. And that's where generally it's if somebody has, through reproductive assistance, has a child, they can go through an expedited process to adopt that child, because some other states might not recognize if there is a same-sex couple with a child that they have. So that helps with that. But the bill that's coming back has added something for, I'm going to forget the name of the terminology for it, but it's guardianship for children of individuals that may be deported. And it's an expedited process to get children a guardian, and that's coming over.
A temporary guardian.
Yes, so that's one we're going to start looking at actually this week, that we're getting back over from the Senate.
Got it. Oh, and that you're hoping will pass before the
Yeah,
end of
yeah.
the
The
year.
intent is to pass that. There's the other two bills that we're still working on. Hopefully, pass one of them at least by the end of this week. One has to do with sealing of criminal records. That right now we have a system that for certain crimes you can have your record expunged, and those documents are deleted. Here it would be a sealing of documents, which would still allow some uses of those documents, but an individual who has a sealed record could still say for employment or housing that they don't have a criminal record that provides them that ability. But by going that route, we can expand what the offenses are, that we can make that available to individuals. So that's a fairly big bill, just by number of pages, that one is. And we still have a right to farm bill that we're working with agriculture, which I'm not sure where that one's going to end up.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We did a lot of different
You
things
have a lot going on,
in our
yeah.
committee.
And how long have you been chair?
This is my second biennium.
Yeah.
This is my 11th year in the committee.
Got it.
So
Great. Well, Representative Lalonde, thank you for joining us today.
thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, and thank you all for watching Under the Dome. Tune in here, cctv.org, for more programming like this. Take care.